Hey guys, RoxaBox90 here with another card in the day in the life of an EDH commander, and today it's going to be cards in a day in the life of an EDH commander. It's going to be because I decided to do something a little unusual. I'm going to take a bunch of random cards from the Avacyn spoiler and break down what my thoughts are for them in EDH. Now you're going to be surprised because some cards are missing that are in the spoiler or that will be spoiled, let's say by the end of the week, so hopefully I can get out another follow-up video. You'll also notice that the three colored angels and Avacyn, I'm kind of going to talk about those in the next video. So stay tuned for that and hopefully give me some good comments. Now, onto the cards. So, first up, we're going to talk about Restoration Angel. So my thoughts on Restoration Angel are this. It's a pretty decent body. It's 4 for 3/4 flash, flying. Flash is great in EDH, because you can play during their turn if you have mana open. And what I like about its ability is its blink ability for a non-angel creature. So what I love about it is that you can save one of your own creatures by blinking out of play if it's targeted, and also having a body for 4. It's not terrible. It really is not terrible, because you can have, there are bounce spells you can use, Mana War and things of that nature, to put creatures back in your hand in protection, and they cost 3, so 4 for a solid body, flash flying, that saves a guy potentially, or lets you reuse cards. Seems pretty solid to me. So if you're running especially 1v1, it's pretty good for a curve. Multiplayer maybe less so, but if you can fit in your curve, I think it's a pretty cool card. Terminus. Terminus is pretty much just Hallowed Burial for an extra 1. That's what I initially thought when I looked at it. And then they talked about it in Daily MTG, and I thought more about it. I mean, I would look at it pretty much just as a 6 Hallowed Burial, which is not really bad. It's only 1 more mana. And the Miracle is a nice effect. So it's a pretty obvious shoe-in if you're running Wrath spells. I think it's pretty good, and it'll be pretty cheap and easy to get in this new set, ideally. So I would grab a copy at least to have for EDH decks. Seems pretty good. Next up, we have Infinite Reflection. Infinite Reflection is a weird card. I'm not a fan of auras in EDH, so I don't know if I'm the best person to talk about it, but the 6 cost is very heavy, in my opinion. However, it's really cool that it's able to target, it can be attached to really any creature. And then each other non-control creature you control is to copy that creature. So the fact that you can take someone else's really cool card and infinite reflect it seems pretty awesome to me. It seems a little limiting, though, given its cost and given that you can only do a 1 creature. But I think if you attach it to a Blightsteel Colossus or something, no one's going to be complaining. So maybe we'll see what happens with it. Next up, we have Gather the Components. Sorry, I couldn't find an art for it, but it's pretty much a draw spell. It's 3 and a blue, draw 3, put 1 card from your hand on the bottom of your library. I like this card because I like really good draw cards, and I think this is really solid, possibly underrated because I haven't heard a lot about anybody else talking about it. But the fact that it's 4 cost, draw 3, that's already pretty solid. There's cards like Concentration, and there are slightly more expensive cards like Tiding that get you 4, but I like the fact that it can draw you 3 for 4 and put 1 card from your hand to the bottom of your library. So the reason this is really good, in my opinion, is that more often than not, people end up with a card or 2 in their hand that's not very useful. And having it stuck in your hand and not able to be used, being able to put it out of your hand on the bottom of your deck to end up drawing a new card that you could use and 2 more for 4 is really not too bad, I think. I've used Vendilion Clique on myself in order to drop a card to the bottom of my deck and in order to draw another card, and I think this does that for a fairly reasonable cost. So if your deck's already really solid, really perfect, you almost never draw a card you're missing, maybe ignore it, but for people who are building new decks and want a budget draw spell that's really solid, I would go for this one. Next up, let's talk about his big baddiness himself, Grizzle Bran, whose artwork, sadly, in my opinion, is fail. Flavor-wise aside, he is awesome. 4 black for a 7/7 flying lifelink. Stop right there. Awesome. He's a good card. He's already good. He's a solid beater in EDH. The lifelink is very helpful, I think, and for mono blacks, that's a shoo-in. Pay 7 life, draw 7 cards. Wait, did I just read that right? Pay 7 life, draw 7 cards. That sounds a little bit like a Necropotence to me on a stick. or things like Necropotence on a stick. That's really, really good. Particularly with Her Highness Kalia the Vast. I mean, just what? You attack with Kalia, you put Grizzle Bran to play, you attack, you pay 7 life, you draw 7 cards, you gain your 7 life right back. That is just obscene, that is ridiculous. So Kalia people out there, definitely run Grizzle Bran in your deck. There is pretty much no reason not to. And even for mono black EDH players, he's a good reanimator target. And the ability to draw 7 cards on a stick is obscene for the life. I mean, EDH, the life is irrelevant for that many cards. So being able to draw another hand, definitely shoo-in. Next we have Tamiyo, the Planeswalker. So her 5 cost is pretty much irrelevant in EDH. We know that that's totally reasonable. Her +1 is, she's a 4 loyalty, 2 blue, 3 CC. And her +1 taps a permanent and does an untap during untap steps, so it's a little like Frost Titan that way. I like it because it can lock down land cards, it can lock down big creatures. I like the lockdown effect. I think it's pretty cool. And it seems to be pretty permanent. So I'm not quite sure if it untaps if she gets killed, but if it doesn't, it's an obscene ability, and if it does, well, it's still pretty sick being able to lock down stuff as long as she's around. Her -2 draw card for each tapped creature target player controls. In EDH, there are many times a lot of tapping going on or large amounts of creatures. Being able to -2 her right off the bat to draw who knows how many cards, especially in multiplayer, where I think she'll see even more play, I think it's pretty good. I think that's a really good draw engine. Even better in some ways than Garruk. And then her -8 is you get an emblem. Oh boy, emblems are always good. It says you have no maximum hand size. Bingo, there we go. Reliquary Tower forever in a -8. That's great. That's already solid. What else do we have? And whenever a card is put into your graveyard from anywhere, you may turn it to your hand. What? Recursion on everything. Reusability on everything. That is obscene. That is amazing. That is crazy. Okay, so yeah, she's definitely... You're not going to see her ultimate. I can pretty much guarantee you that. I don't think anyone will let that happen. But if it does happen, then you pretty much have the game in your hand. That is crazy. Constant card reusability, being able to draw stuff on a stick and tap down permanents. I think she's fantastic. You'll see her in many decks. Most, I was going to say most, but many decks that run blue are going to run her. She is just great. Then let's go to another card that is not worth your time. Arcane Melee. So 4 and a blue for an enchantment. Instant sorcery spells cost 2 less to cast. Already awful, in my opinion. Because you do not want to help anybody else. Do not help other people. That is a terrible idea. The 5 cost is really heavy for what it does. Definitely not worth it. I don't know. I really don't like this card. I would not recommend it. Unless your deck is seriously heavy on instants and sorceries and you have board control, I think it's just awful. Just ignore it. Move on by. Next we have Rite of Ruins. 5 and 2 red. This is for all those crazy red players out there who love random destruction things. Being able to order either artifacts, creatures, and lands, making everyone sacrifice stuff. Stacks decks will probably like this. Various decks that do. I don't know if Mass LD is quite what it's for, but it's interesting. Its cost isn't horrible, and I like the ability to choose what is most destroyed versus less destroyed. So I like that option. In EDH, of course, being able to choose, such as in the different command cards, picking and choosing things and knowing that, okay, there are more artifacts than lands, and being able to set it up that way, I like that. So maybe not a shoo-in, but definitely a solid card. I would consider it if I was running red more often. Next up, Reforged the Soul is really good. Really, really good in EDH. Multiplayer, I would say it's still really good. I like the fact that it costs... Okay, so Wheel of Fortune itself costs 3. The actual Wheel of Fortune, which I'm pretty sure, yeah, people run in EDH, no problem. But the Wheel of Fate, which was the time spiral card brought back, I didn't like the fact that it's very hard to predict because you play it. Sorry, it's too easy to predict, and therefore it's very hard to predict yourself because you play it and suddenly everyone knows it's coming. So it could be countered and it could be manipulated around. People aren't going to stick around when a card like this is coming their way. So you have one Wheel of Fortune, you want another one. This one's sick because the Miracle cost is good if you top deck it, or somehow you draw it off the top of your deck. The 2 cost is crazy. It's cheaper than Wheel of Fortune even. The red decks often have this problem when they run out of cards, so this card you're not going to run out of. And the 5 cost itself is really not that terrible, especially if you get it late game, off a bunch of draw engines, and you can't miracle cost it. It's still, I think, very reasonable costed. So that is a card to look for. Now, another card I don't like, Primal Surge. 8 and 2 green for a sorcery. Exile a top card of your library. If it's a permanent card, you may put it on the battlefield. If you do, repeat its process. Just, I do not like this. Someone said to me, wouldn't this be good in EDH? And I say no. I think this is really bad because you have things like Genesis Wave. Come on. I mean, 10 cost, even if you could set it up, it seems a bit obscene in price to have as a card in the deck. I mean, you might be able to play around and set it up and make something of it. I'm sure there'll be games where people use it and suddenly something crazy happens and the game's over. But in terms of consistency, I would run Genesis Wave in a heartbeat. I think it's much better, a much better card. Being able to, you can do more, you can pay the cost so you don't have to limit yourself. So I would choose Genesis Wave over Primal Surge. I really don't like the fact that especially it leaves something in exile. So if it's exile as an instant or sorcery that's not a permanent, then it'll just sit out there and be exiled. So it can hurt you. I really just do not like the variability of it. So I'm not going to run it. Next up we have Crater Hoof Behemoth. So he's 8 for a 5/5 beast. He's haste. When he enters the battlefield, creatures you control gain trample, and X+X, where X the number of creatures you control. Okay, so I know he's pretty solid. A lot of mono green decks are going to run him. He seems a bit costed given that he has haste, but that's kind of irrelevant. He's a 5/5. He does get stronger for the more creatures you have. I hear that, and trample. So that's pretty cool. But his cost is heavy, and I don't think he's as powerful per se as some other spells like Overwhelming Stampede. Because you have, in many green decks, you're not going to have a gazillion creatures on the field. You'll probably have between 2 and 5, 2 and 6, depending. Token decks, hell yeah, put this card in right away. But otherwise, he seems good. I don't know how great he is, especially he has to be so expensive. I would say he's pretty solid. Consider running him. I may try him out, but not so sure yet. We'll see what happens. Let's get to a land. Alchemists Refuge. The other ones I don't want to deal with because they're either obvious or they're standard focused and they're not going to be very good in EDH. Alchemists Refuge, let's talk about. It's pretty much, I love this card. It's Vidalcan Orrery for a turn on a stick. Being able to just tap it, and non-land cards can be cast as though they had flash. I love that. I think this is going to be a sure shoe-in for control-focused things. I think it's a really powerful card, and it's non-land, so it's really anything. That's, I think, phenomenal. I think it's phenomenal. So, definitely awesome. Definitely awesome card. I'm probably going to put that in Rafiq. Last up for today, we're going to talk about a Cavern of Souls. Really quickly, it comes into play, you choose a creature type. It's not legendary land, but you only get one EDH anyway, so it doesn't matter. Add one colorless to your mana pool, and then add one mana, any card to your mana pool, spend this to cast creature spells of the type you chose, and if this mana is spent, can be countered. What? Tribal decks are laughing. They are so happy. This card is crazy. It's amazing. Decks that run specific types of creature types are going to explode. This card is crazy. Definitely get them. If you get a copy, hold on to at least one copy because they're going to be shooting through the roof, I know, in other formats. And this is a card you definitely want to keep around if you're making some sort of tribal deck. I think it's great. Especially it's a rare. It's not too hard to get. So I think it's going to be phenomenal. And that's all for today. I know this is cards in a day, the life of an EDH commander, but please comment below. Let me know the ones I missed. Don't mention the Angels because I'll be getting back to them by the end of the week. Hopefully, I'll make another video of Avacyn when all the things are spoiled. So stay tuned for that. Please comment below. Let me know what cards I missed that you want me to talk about, hopefully, and any thoughts you have on this video. As usual, Roxabox90 are signing out. Thank you for watching. See you guys next time.